Happy Valentine's! Yeah, I know it's been a week. Valentine's is already over, but you know what they say. Every day is Valentine's. And as far as I know, this entire month is dedicated to love. And we're still in February. So, happy Valentine's. If last week you were taken out, if you received any gifts, any chocolate, any wine, any roses, good for you. If you didn't get anything or if no one hit you up to take you out, I'm sorry, we try again next year. Speaking of which, this year in January, Disconnect the Wedding Planner was released and it had a lot of people talking. A lot of people had a lot to say about the movie. And since it ties to this month's theme, I thought, why not check it out and give it a review? With that being said, welcome to the Raw Pod. Let's get real and raw with me, Renee Were. So, Disconnect the Wedding Planner was released in January of 2023, this year, like I said before. It was written by Brian Getuba and directed by Tosh Gitonga, famously known for directing Nairobi Half-Life and who also directed the first movie. So it's the sequel to Disconnect that came out sometime in 2018. So it's a romantic comedy and it's basically about this dude who loses his inheritance to a scam in the process of planning a wedding for one of his investors and childhood friends. So basically the entire movie is him trying to plan this wedding which he already committed to with the help of his friends. So in the first movie, it centered around a lady known as Celine and her relationships with her childhood friend known as Josh, who was played by Nick Mutuma. Celine was played by Brenda Wairimu. Yeah, so the first movie had Celine as the protagonist or the main character, and it showed us her trying to, navigate her love life within Nairobi as a millennial. So her other friends were just side characters, but in this sequel, it focuses on Otis, who is played by Pascal Tokodi, and he was actually one of the supporting characters in the first film. So in this second film, it focuses on Otis and his story. It focuses on him navigating the Nairobi dating scene. So I think that's what Disconnect is really built around. It's just about showing how millennials or young people are navigating the Nairobi dating scene. So it starts out with Otis meeting his current hookup at a restaurant, and she asks him, so yeah, what are we? And he's like, yeah, there's there's nothing here. I mean, look around. I could literally have any girl I want. So why would you think that this should be serious? And then the next scene is TK's birthday. Now, TK is played by Kate Actress, and she was also in the first movie. So the next scene is her birthday, which Otis helped to plan. And I think it already tells us that these two are going to, have something later on. So already it's clear from the start that Otis and TK are going to be in some sort of relationship. They have TK's birthday, and then Otis receives a call from his childhood friend. I guess it was his childhood friend or just a friend that he's known for a long time. So anyway, yeah, Otis receives a call from his childhood friend called Dele, who is a Nigerian. So one thing I forgot to mention is that the sequel now merges another country. So this time, the first movie was centered in Nairobi, but this time they incorporated another culture into it. So now we have the Nairobi culture and the Nigerian culture with a focus on the Yoruba culture. So Otis receives a call from his Yoruba childhood friend, I guess. He overhears Dele and his fiancée, Rita, arguing about the wedding. Rita is stressed about her wedding and, she's overwhelmed with the whole process of planning. So Dele tries to calm her down, and Otis, while he's still on the phone with Otis, so Otis overhears their conversation and he's like, hey, let me help, let me plan your wedding. So they agree, and then Otis now begins the process of planning the wedding. So he seeks the services of this event organizing agency or something, and they agree. So they agree that, yeah, we'll help you plan the wedding for this and this amount. And Otis is like, fine, I'll deposit this amount, some couple millions. So si washa panga that they will help him plan the wedding. It's a done deal. And then turns out those people were actually scammers. And how do we know this? Because Otis, the very next day, I think he went for some meeting or some consultation with those guys. And then he finds that they already packed up and vacated those premises. And the scream he lets out, it was so funny how he just started screaming and yelling. I don't know. That scene was really, really funny. But something that I really liked about that scene was how it was shot. We don't only see Otis losing. That scene is also paralleled with Patricia Kihoro's character's scene. Patricia Kihoro's character is known as Judy. So Judy is a very self-righteous, Jesus girl, basically. Mama Kanisa. So in the movie, it starts out with her dating this dude. And then she also finds out that the dude is cheating on her with her dad's secretary. Yeah, men and the audacity. So yeah, I really liked how they put those two scenes together so that we not only see Otis at his lowest, we also see Judy, the way they reveal that she was being cheated on. So she goes to his place of work, I think, to surprise him, and then finds that, yeah, his tongue is down another woman's throat. And yeah, I really liked that scene. I loved the way it was shot. I really loved that. So yeah, Otis now, after he finds out that he's been scammed, na pesa zake zenye ametoa to, kickstart the planning process of his friend's wedding, he decides to seek his friend's help. So he video calls all his friends, kina Nani, kina Judy, kina TK. He video calls Khalid, who was his associate in the first movie. So in the first movie, Khalid, Otis, and Josh, they were running a company. And yeah, some sort of, advertising agency or PR agency, something like that. So yeah, the three of them were running a company. But, at the end of the movie, Josh leaves with this lady who takes him to Amsterdam. So he leaves the company under Khalid and Otis. And yeah, they start planning the wedding. So now, the wedding is supposed to take place in Mombasa. It's supposed to be a destination wedding. So they all go to Mombasa. Sasa lucky enough, Otis happens to know a chick called Nandi who owns a resort at the coast. So that's where the wedding takes place, and that's where everyone stays at as they plan the wedding. So they arrive at Mombasa, and Nandi welcomes Otis and his gang of friends. So right from the start, Nandi clearly has her eyes on Celine's boyfriend, Richard, whom she got with towards the very end of the first movie. So she clearly is hitting on Richard. She tells them, you guys, all the rooms are full, but so itabidi, you guys either share or you take the executive suite. So Celine is like, yeah, we'll take the executive suite. No. Richard is like, we'll take the executive suite. Then Celine is like, baby, no, we can't, because, it's really not within our budget. Then Nandi is like, oh, no. For you guys, I can make an exception. Yeah, I can give you the room at a discount. Yeah. So it's very clear that, she is hitting on Celine's boyfriend. So while they're there, they start planning for the wedding. And by this time, we've been shown that Celine and Richard have cracks in their relationship. because earlier on, there's a scene before even the whole entire Nini, before they even come to coast and before Otis asks for their help. There's a scene where Celine and Richard are at a therapist's office. So they've decided to take their relationship problems to a therapist to try and help them solve. So while at the office, we are revealed to that apparently Richard is very controlling, always wants to have his way and all that. So yeah, they've been having problems in their relationship, of which they still carry them over to the coast. So now Richard and Khalid are helping out in the kitchen because they've been assigned that task of preparing the meals for the wedding. As they're in the kitchen, they meet this chef who gives Richard some eye-opening life advice, I guess, that changes his whole outlook on his relationship with Celine, and he decides to apologize to her. So he gets Celine while she's meditating. So she's trying to meditate, and he comes in with all the energy and a new outlook on life and ready to apologize, but wrong timing. I mean, you just don't come interrupting someone's meditation session, so he's there talking and talking and talking and, I've just had this new perspective. I was wrong. And yes, you're right. Sometimes I can't be controlling. I always want to have it my way. So at the moment, Celine is really trying so hard to focus on her meditation, and she's trying to tell him, like, babe, please, just wait. Ngoja tu kidogo, I finish, and then we can talk. He doesn't listen. He goes on and on and on. So finally, Celine breaks, and she's like, Richard, shut up. Shut up, as in nyamaza. I'm trying to meditate, and you hear yapping. So Richard is like, okay. And he leaves. He goes to the bar, and guess who's seated there? Judy, the Jesus girl. So he's like, I didn't expect to see you here, and yada, 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 because, Judy is the self-proclaimed deputy Jesus of the group, and everyone knows. And she's like, yeah, I just needed some alone time. Yeah. So he orders for a drink, and she's like, what's that? What's that drink you ordered? Ati mosquito juice. I found this line so silly. So Richard orders for a Moscato, and which is a type of, a sweet kind of wine. So she's like, Ati, what's that? Mosquito juice. And I found that line so silly. That line was so silly. I don't even know who wrote it and why. Just why. Anyway, so he's like, no, this is Moscato. It's a kind of wine, yeah. So he's like, I would have given you to try it, but, since you've told me you don't drink, I respect your choice. Then she's like, she grabs the drink from his hand and takes a big gulp. And she likes it. So they end up drinking and having fun. And Richard is like, okay, I'm going to the beach for a walk. Do you want to come? And she's like, okay. Hiya. They walk, they talk. Judy's like, the beach is beautiful. Then Richard is like, it's really nice, especially when you have good company. Then Judy's like, yeah, I thought I had good company and then I got cheated on. So she opens up about how she was cheated on. And Richard is like, I'm sorry, you didn't deserve that. We are not our mistakes. We are not the things, people do to us and all that, motivational stuff. As he looks into Judy's eyes. So for a moment there, they look into each other's eyes and yeah, they end up having sex. Yeah. Richard ends up cheating on Celine with the Jesus girl. But you know what? I really, really loved that scene. Not because of the sex scene, but just the build-up. I loved, if there's one thing they did right, is the build-up of that scene. I think it was written so well, from Celine telling him to shut up, from him going to the bar. You can see the intensity of Richard and Judy's relationship rise and rise and rise until, it finally rises to the occasion. And I loved how that scene was written. So yeah, they end up having an affair and TK finds out. So she finds out when she arrives, because she didn't come with them. She found out by seeing the two of them, hugging. You know that last hug before you leave, the morning after hug. Yeah. She sees Judy and Richard giving each other the morning after hug, and she's like, Judy, you bitch. So all the while she's giving Judy this dirty looks, and I think Sasa, Judy picks up on her looks and she's like, shit, TK knows what I did. There's this whole TK knows what I did guilt with Judy, and TK knowing that she, TK knowing what they did and Judy knowing that she knows. Like, it's, yeah. They play around with that until now everything erupts in one of the last scenes and everyone finds out the truth. But before that, Dele and Rita arrive and they see the setup of the wedding, and they don't like it and they start overreacting. I felt that they really overreacted in that scene. It really wasn't necessary. I felt like they were doing entirely too much. Like, it's a destination wedding. I feel like Otis got the theme right. It's a destination wedding. It's supposed to be outdoorsy and all. Did they expect it to be in a church? And anyway, they just overreacted for nothing. So when they arrive, there's this whole Nigeria versus Kenya debacle, and wanavutana, who does what better. Yeah. Dele and Rita say that we want changes to our wedding. We don't care, Atakama. And mind you, the wedding is the next day. So these people arrive and they're already demanding changes, and Otis have no choice but to make it happen. So the wedding is the next day, and they don't like the decorations. They don't like the food. They want Yoruba food. They want the Yoruba feel in their wedding. So now they have to start from scratch. They have to order new decorations, decorate everything again. They have to cook everything from scratch to make it be a Yoruba wedding. So the last scene is where now everything comes to the surface, where we find out that, actually it's not even the last scene, it's one of the last scenes towards the end. Now we find out that Judy and actually TK is the one who blew the whistle, because on now the day of the wedding, the guys are preparing themselves in the room. So Richard, Khalid and Otis, they're like, congratulations, Richard, you're getting married. Because now Richard, doing the typical thing people do when they're guilty, decides instead of telling Celine the truth, he's going to propose. So they're congratulating him on the engagement, and Otis is like, hey, you're really brave considering what happened. So Richard is like, what happened? Then he storms out of the room and goes into where the ladies are preparing themselves. And he's like, Celine, why didn't you tell me that you and Josh slept together while we were in a relationship? So everyone is like, hey, what? This happened? Hey? And then he's there giving a whole speech about, this is why I'll never be happy, huh? Blah, 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 making Celine look like the bad guy when he literally cheated yesterday. So TK is like, hold on, I know you're not the one talking when you and Judy were messing around a few days ago. So she forces them to confess. And of course, wananyamaza, so she decides to rat them out. So yeah, there's that drama. And then it just cuts to the wedding. They're having fun at the wedding reception, blah, blah, blah. Richard and Celine make up after Nadi's failed attempt to make a move on Richard. So Richard is like, nah, I'm not really feeling you. Besides, I have Celine and I love her and I would love to make it work. Yeah. And then Otis confronts Dele about the money. They almost fight, and then that's just never talked about again. So they just cut to Otis and TK at the beach, and they confess their love to each other, but they don't do anything about it because Otis is vulnerable and he's scared to pursue a relationship with TK. So TK is upset and she leaves. So they all leave for Nairobi, and Otis decides to go after TK and decides that he wants to pursue a relationship with TK. And then Richard and Celine are apparently pregnant. And as they're coming out of the doctor's office, guess who they find? Jesus Girl and Khalid also coming out of a gynecologist's office. And I was just like, but when did this happen? As in, when did this happen? Like, how? Anyway, so yeah, Khalid and Judy are also expecting a child together, apparently. So yeah, they all lived happily ever after, I guess. So now that I have given a summary of the plot, which wasn't really a summary because I damn near narrated the entire movie, I now want to get into the review. So a lot of people said that this movie wasn't so great. They weren't wrong, but in as much as there were things that were wrong with the movie, there are also things that were done well. So I'm going to start with what they got right. The cinematography, 10 out of 10. That one, I will not even lie. By the way, it's a great improvement from Disconnect 1. The shots were beautiful, the locations were beautiful, the camera movements great, lighting great. The cinematography was chef's kiss. It was beautiful. I enjoyed every frame I saw. It's a great improvement from the first one. I also loved the soundtrack, though I preferred the soundtrack of the first Disconnect. I don't know, I just liked it. I don't know. I just loved the first soundtrack. I think because of the nostalgic songs, the Vanessa MD songs. I really miss Vanessa MD. She should come back to music, even though I know she won't do that and she won't be doing that anytime soon. But yeah, but I liked the soundtrack in the second movie as well. I loved that they used East African songs, Kenyan songs for that. I gave it a 10 out of 10. It was well matched with the scenes. Whatever was happening at a particular scene, there would be a song that was fitting for that scene, and I loved that. I think they did that very, very well. Now, for the casting, well, I saw people complaining that they were casting the same actors. It's a sequel. I don't know what you expected. I don't know what they expected. What did you expect? It's a sequel, so it's going to have the same actors. But I also understand what they were saying, because these Kenyan films have a habit of casting the same 5 people for every movie. So you find that every movie has the same characters from the other movie and a few veterans, but it's normally the same clique. And I think Kenyans are tired of seeing that. Yeah. But I'd say the characters that were well cast, the guy who played Richard, TK, and Otis, of course, and they really, fit. It's like they're basically just made for the characters they played. They fit their characters. And also Celine and Judy. Yeah. Patricia Kihoro did a very good job of portraying a self-righteous person. A little too well, I might add. Made me think that, hey, this is really how she is in real life. My favorite character, I don't think I had any favorite character. I really didn't have any, but I had a least favorite character. Actually, I had like 3. I'll start with Nandi. Not only are you trying to steal someone's boyfriend so blatantly, you're not even hiding it. Your acting sucks. Like, her acting sucked. It's almost as though she was trying to remember her lines, and it's clear that she was struggling with English. So I don't know, I wish they just let her speak Swahili. But her acting, no. I never want to see her on my screen again. Rita's mom, doing too much. Just the most. Like, calm down. And Dele. Actually, Rita's mom and Dele, like, the 3 of you, you're doing too much. Especially the first time they saw the decorations, and then they started overreacting. I was just like, now you people, why are you doing too much? So yeah, I felt like they were overacting. Now those ones, they were overacting. Now, for the acting, slightly better than the first one. Because the first Disconnect, hey, that one I had rated the acting a 5 out of 10. Hey, the first one, I was I was so irritated. Like, the delivery was just bad. They were acting like they're ni kama wako drama festival. Even the way they were delivering those lines, it's like, where? This is not a stage. This is a screen. You do not deliver lines like you're on a theatre stage, please. But for this second installment, the acting was a bit better. And one actor who I really, really loved was Richard. Richard aced his role. That one for sure. From the way the delivery, the expressions, just the way he was carrying himself. I loved Richard's character. He aced his role. He played it so well. That one did a great job. And also, Patricia Kihoro's character, she was well written because she's an accurate portrayal of how self-righteous and overzealous Christians behave. And like I said earlier, she played her role a little bit too well. She really knew how to portray the pretentious innocence. I think it's her eyes. Yeah, she did that so well. She really knew how to do it. You know, pretending to be innocent, but you have this dark side that you keep hidden. She portrayed that very well. Also, I loved the chemistry between TK and Otis. I just realized I didn't even speak at length about the development of their romance. But yeah, throughout the movie, we see their relationship developing from people who are struggling to be friends because they clearly have feelings to people who don't want to admit that they have feelings for one another, so they're just giving each other silent looks, to people who finally decide to be together. So I think they had great chemistry, especially the scene at the beach and the scene where they finally kissed. Those two scenes are well acted. Especially the scene at the beach. They did a very great job at directing the vulnerability. I loved how they were vulnerable to one another, especially Otis. Like, we finally got to see his character be vulnerable because all along, from the beginning of this movie to the middle, we see this playboy persona of his and, you know, this guy who doesn't care about feelings and relationships and all that stuff. You know, he's just there for the sex. He's here for a good time. Use and discard them. To now the middle where we see him actually, now we get to see why he is the way he is because he's just scared of being hurt and he's scared of being bored, of no longer having those romantic feelings for someone. So I really liked that character development that they showed with Otis. Oh, and by the way, something I also forgot to mention is that in this second movie, Otis is now a dad. So we see that he's now a dad and he's fathered a child with the Indian girl who was part of the group. In the first movie, you know, there's the squad of 6 girls, Celine's friendship squad, where it's Celine, TK, Piera's character, some other chick, and the Indian girl. And in the first movie, at some point, towards the end, they reveal that Otis and the Indian chick had a thing. So that thing resulted in a child who Otis and the Indian chick are now raising. We are shown how Otis is navigating fatherhood while still being a player. And then now he develops from that. We are shown his vulnerability, and finally he decides to take a leap of faith and get into a relationship with the one he actually likes, TK. So yeah, I really loved how Otis's character developed, which is quite telling because he was the only character with actual character development in the entire movie. Everyone else just stayed the same. Some characters walikuwa too, by the way. So, I have finished everything that I found to be good about the movie. Now, I want to get into the bad. You know, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. So now I'm at the bad and the ugly. What made Kenyans actually diss this movie? Because Kenyans were really, really disappointed. And after watching the movie, I kind of got why people were disappointed. So, the writing. the writing, which is something that also forms part of today's episode. There seems to be a problem with how Kenyan films are written, and this particular movie highlighted that there's indeed a problem when it comes to storytelling and writing in Kenyan film. So if you've noticed, I talked about casting, I talked about the acting, I talked about the cinematography, the soundtrack, but there's something that I left out: the plot. So I get that it's a feel-good movie, but things need to make sense. And there are quite a few things that did not make much sense. For example, the plot. Some characters were missing. In the original group, there were 6 friends. Like I said before, Celine, TK, Pierre McKenna's character, whose name I can't remember, the Indian chick, and some girl. Yeah. And Judy. 6 girls. We are shown what's going on with 5 of the girls, but one of the girls is just cut off. There's no mention of her even within the dialogue. Like, for someone who pays attention like me, nilishanga sana, where is this 6th friend? She just got cut off with 0 explanation. We don't know if she died. We don't know if she moved to another country. We know nothing. Walimsahau tu hivo. Like, hey, if I were that friend, I'd be very hurt, because people just moved on and they forgot about you. At least now with Piera's character, we see that, they got married and we see her life as a mother. With the Indian chick, we now see that she's raising a kid with Otis. And then we also see what the others are up to. Judy is dating someone. TK is now being promoted to vice president of project management at her company. Celine and Richard are having problems in their relationship. We saw how the rest fared on with their lives, but for this particular girl, there's nothing. Another plot point I found confusing was TK's birthday scene. So during TK's birthday scene, which is the second scene actually, TK calls Otis aside and she, thanks him for putting her surprise party together. So at that point, she also asks him out for drinks as a way to say thank you. And then suddenly, from nowhere, Otis's ex-girlfriends appear from nowhere and they're like, "Hi, Otis." Then one by one, they greet him, like to, make him aware of their presence. So TK sees this and she's upset and she walks off. And I was just like, first of all, who invited you guys? Who let you in? Do you know any of the friends here? Nyinyi ni kina nani na mmetoka wapi? Nani waliwafungulia mlango? Like, mnajuana na mtu hapa ama nyinyi ni kina nani? There's 0 explanation. They just come, show up, and walk off. That didn't make sense. Another plot hole. What happened to Celine's career? Because in the first movie, she was apparently this dentist. In the second movie, there's no mention of her career. It's like she never existed in that space. Nothing. No mention of it. No portrayal. Nothing. Tunaendelea tuna maisha. All we know is she's dating Richard. No mention of her career. Nothing. Ata we don't even know what she does for a living right now. As in, nothing. Another plot hole. During the last final, scene, the big reveal of Judy and Richard's affair and, Celine and Josh's affair, they just cut to the wedding reception. So, meaning everything was just miraculously solved just in time for the wedding. Ni kama waliamua tu, we have a wedding to catch, guys. Peace. Maneno ya usharati, we'll solve another time. As in, no tying of loose ends. Nothing. Cut. Just cut. People are now happy. Dancing. Hey, mesahau that we just found out that 2 people in a relationship have been cheating on each other. And then something else. Dele and Otis, they almost fought. Yet, Dele's dad was so nonchalant and even willing to bet on who's going to win between his son and someone else. As in, what the actual hell? I get that it's supposed to be comedic, but what kind of parent is this that is betting on his son's conflict? Ati, hey, ni mtoto wangu atashinda ama ni mwingine mwenye anataka kumchapa? Bro, it sounds like you're a failed parent. Who does that? As in, hata kama ni comedy, So it has to make sense bana. Kwani uni hakumlea ama nini? I just found that strange. That fight between Dele and Otis, it's also never addressed. Because apparently they are fighting over money. Sijui ni kaa Dele alikuwa amekataa kutuma deposit ya wedding planning. That's also never addressed. Inaisha tu. It's just abandoned. Nyi mjipange, mjijazie. And then another plot hole. Khalid and Judy hooking up was so random. Like, what the hell? We didn't see any development. Tunaona tu, suddenly, they're now expecting a kid. We don't see the development of their relationship. It would have been nice to at least see their relationship blossom. Anyway, those are just some of the plot holes that I came across. But one thing I also forgot to point out was I liked how they portrayed Richard and Celine's relationship because it was so realistic. It was just an accurate portrayal of a typical toxic relationship. People who are clearly not good for each other, but they somehow just can't seem to let each other go. Yeah, they portrayed that very well because uko mwisho, we see that they're still arguing at the therapist's office. There's like a montage of now where everyone is headed with their lives. So they show us that Celine and Richard are in the therapist's office. They're still arguing, so they are still toxic. So those are the plot holes that I found. I didn't like how they just start a story and then quickly abandon it. Like, bro, are we supposed to fill in for ourselves? What is this? You need to tie loose ends within something else I want to talk about with regards to writing is the dialogue. Some of the dialogue was so cringy. Like the one I said about Judy thinking Moscato is mosquito juice. That was so lame. Like, come on. Nani aliandika hii mtoto wa primary? Like, some of the dialogue really sounds like it was written by a kid. The dialogue wasn't that great, but it was better than the first. Hey, the first movie. Hey. By the way, the first movie, I was just watching and getting tired. I can't believe that the second one is a slight improvement of the first. Even dialogue-wise, even though I think it could be better, it was still an improvement. But still, the dialogue, it needed work. The characters, like I said before, Otis is the only character who showed he's the only one who had a character arc. I don't know if it's because he was the protagonist, but yeah, he's the only one who had a sensible character arc. Hao watu wengine walikuwa tu vile tuliwapata ndio vile waliisha. I get that, yeah, sometimes people don't change. That can also be a character arc. Kuna kwanga na hiyo character arc ya from bad to good, from good to bad, and the people who just remain the same. I get it. But to have 98% of the characters having no development is worrying. The people who I understood having no character development were Richard and Celine. I get what their purpose was. Their purpose was to show that no matter what, some people just never change. Otis was from player to a guy who's willing to take a chance on love and commitment. The rest were just there. I feel like Ata Judy was a wasted potential. As in, I wish they, gave us more to work with Judy. I mean, from a self-righteous person to someone who can actually be a fornicator and an adulterer to, something interesting. Maybe that's the whole point of the movie, because inaitwa disconnect. So I guess we're meant to feel also disconnected, just like the characters are in their dating lives. Conflict. A good story always has to have conflict. If you bring in conflict, you have to resolve it. They were bringing in conflicts and either resolving it in a very silly way or not resolving it at all. Kama the fight between Dele and Otis, it was just abandoned. It's clear there was conflict between Otis and his baby mama, because the baby mama hataki story zake, so she's just like, let's just raise this kid. Let's not Let's not, extend what we have. Let's just focus on our child. There's clearly conflict there because this person who doesn't want anything to do with you but your presence as a dad. Like, whenever shown now him navigating fatherhood after commitment to someone. Like, so much was left unresolved. Kwanza, that big reveal of scandals, affairs and all that. They build it up and then they cut to the wedding reception. Like, where is the resolution? So, with all that being said, it's clear that Kenyan films have an issue with the writing, because this isn't the only thing I've seen where the writing is wanting. There's so many that I could talk about where the writing is really, really weak. What can be done? First, prioritize writing. Prioritize storytelling. That's one thing I've seen that Kenyan filmmakers don't want to do. Don't prioritize writing. You're prioritizing everything else. The cinematography, the production techniques, the actors, everything else but the writing. Prioritize and invest in writing. And one of the ways that this can be done is hiring writers. I came across this very, very interesting thread on Twitter that sort of broke down what the issue with these movies with regard to disconnect. One of the things he said was, these people don't like hiring writers, and if they do, they like to exploit them. It was a thread by a Twitter user known as Gatia. So Gatia claims that they're so willing to, invest in other parts of this film, but they're not willing to invest in the writing. And if they do, they don't want to pay them properly. Wanataka kuwalipa peanuts or have them even work for free, because according to them, this isn't real. It's just for TV. Okay, make it make sense. It's not real, but surely this is my craft. This is time I'm taking to carve out a story. What do you mean it's not real? I know it's not real, but it still takes effort to develop it. Let us invest in our writers. Let us invest in storytelling higher. Apart from that, let us expand our stories. What do I mean by this? It can't always be mapenzi and sex. It can't always be those two things. There's so many things that we as a people have gone through in the past, are going through, and might go through. It's time to explore other topical things within this country, from the pre-colonial time to the colonial era and even post-colonial era. We have a very, very rich history. You see how Americans, or the West, let me say the West, how the West has historical epics, like stories about, the Greek mythology, like Troy, the story of Troy, about Greeks at war, Kinanani, 300 historical epics, stories that talk about history. Why can't we have the same for us? So much has happened in this country. I'd love for someone to make a movie about the 1982 coup. That is something that was very instrumental in this country. Mbona tusikuwe na biopics za kina Raila, tusikuwe na biopics za Kibaki? Why can't we have a story about people, a story centered around PEV, for example, a story set in that time? Why can't we have stories about Goldenberg scandal? Scandals that shaped this country's history. We have so much we can talk about. It can't always be about the dating scene. And it's not only in films. Even in our series, kila kitu tu ni dating, sex. There's so much more to this country of ours than just dating and sex. Can we expand our stories? It can't always be about sex. It can't always be about love. Sure, yeah, this can be incorporated within our stories, but they don't always have to be the main focus. We had a pandemic. We went through that. Stories can be told around that. Stories can be told around past court cases that shook this country. Sim nini story ya Onyancha? Yeah, I'd like to see a movie about Onyancha. Where is that movie? Where are the stories about the everyday struggles or just the everyday joys that we go through? Surely, it's not always about relationships. We need to expand our storytelling to other areas of life. Now, apart from that, how do we tell these stories? Like I said before, the writing in Kenyan films is sort of weak. It's very surface level. It's almost as though we are treated as an elementary audience. I'd like to see more depth in our stories. And then also, don't tell, show us. One thing I've also noticed about Kenyan movies, they love to tell us what's happening. Like, it becomes boring. Tuonyeshe, supposed to show, not tell us through dialogue. This is something that I've realized. They love to tell us what is happening by people talking. It's not interesting when people keep talking and talking. Na natuambia what's happening by talking. We also need to see it for ourselves. See wenyewe pia. We also see what's happening and we also try to figure it out. Don't just spoon feed us by telling us that, oh yes, she is the firstborn daughter of Mr. Kamau. You can show us in a picture, I don't know, a portrait where the family is there and give us a clue, like to show us that she's the firstborn. We can also see that this person is a firstborn through how they interact with the rest of the family. Tuvituka hizo. Si kila saa mnatuambia show. Stop telling us. I'd love to see more subtext in stories. I'd love to see layers to the story. Like, beyond what we are seeing here, what else is being shown? I'd like to just see more depth regarding that area. And like I said before, characters and character development. Like, not only should you give us character arcs, but also the characters themselves. How do you write them? Like I said before, some characters there were just so bland. Mpaka unashangaa, kwani huyu, what's their deal? Why are they here? To just take up space. No depth, no nothing. Wako tu. I'd like to see well thought out and complex characters. Not surface level characters that, yeah, this one, ni playboy, likes sex, likes this. By the way, that trope is so played out. The playboy who is also comic relief. I feel like that is such a tired trope. And I'm tired of seeing Kate actress and Tokodi also play this role. It's like, especially Kate actress, I'd like to see her in more roles. Because I feel like she's always playing the sassy best friend. I'd like to see her play other roles. Because there's this other movie where she also played that character. It's called Plan B. Yeah, we need characters with depth and characters who are not one-dimensional. So yeah, that's it for me. That's all I had to say about Disconnect the Wedding Planner. And I feel like there's room for improvement. And it's also important to recognize that, yeah, this movie is very, very pivotal and impactful because it was the third movie to stream on Netflix. The third Kenyan movie to stream on Netflix after Sincerely Daisy and a short film known as Pocha. So yeah, it's significant in our cultural history, but I really need Kenyan writers. If you're a Kenyan writer or an aspiring writer and you are listening, please, I beg you, we need more depth. We need an expansion of our stories. Please expand the scope beyond love and romance. We need more depth, please. It can't always be the same thing. We need more stories that reflect the Kenyan experience beyond relationships and sex and dating. And if you are listening to this as a producer, please invest in writing. It goes a long way. We cannot be having this to show for our country when South Africans have blood and water. Hire writers and pay them their worth. Take writing seriously as a craft, because it is a craft. It is a craft that is worthy, that is important, and that deserves to be recognized. If you can make time and money for everything else, surely you can make time for the script, which is the blueprint of a film. You can do it. It's really not that hard. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed yourself as much as I did. And please don't be afraid to share what you think of this episode or what you think I missed out on. You can find the Rawpod on Instagram at _Rawpod, where you can send me your feedback and find updates on any upcoming episodes. You can follow me on Instagram at _Renee_Were, on Twitter at Were_Renee, on TikTok at Renee_Were, and don't be afraid to tell me what you think about this episode, what you'd like me to talk about in future episodes, and any improvements that you may have or concerns that you may have regarding the Rawpod, where we love to keep it real and raw. So thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode, and let's keep it real and raw right here on the Rawpod with me, Renee Were.